Humanity needs a world order. The fully sovereign nation is incapable of dealing with the poisoning of the environment. The management of the planet, therefore, whether we are talking about the need to prevent war or the need to prevent ultimate damage to the conditions of life, requires a world government. Norman Cousins' statement given at Earth Day in 1970. Lawrence Rockefeller wrote as follows in 1976 Reader's Digest, quote, "Either through voluntary discipline or state compulsion, human society would have to be reconstructed." He predicted that authoritarian control would be necessary to save the earth. I'm Julius Smetona. This is what Catholics believe. With me today to discuss Mother Earth are Don Julius, a parishioner from St. Teresa of the Child Jesus Church in Parma, Ohio, and Father Clarence Kelly, superior of the Society of St. Pius V and spiritual director of St. Joseph's Novitiate in Round Top, New York, a congregation of traditional Roman Catholic sisters. Don, we recently had the Earth Summit in Brazil, and a great deal of attention has been lavished upon the whole environmental state. What's your opinion of this movement?
Well, overall, the environmental movement is a scam. That's not to say that there isn't legitimate environmental concerns that need attention, conservation, recycling, things like this. But unfortunately, the movement itself is being utilized to build totalitarian government here at home in the United States and internationally under the framework of the United Nations. As a little bit of evidence for that, in 1963, 15 leading individuals from the Kennedy administration met in Iron Mountain, New York, and they issued a report which has since become known as the Report from Iron Mountain. And on page 66 of that report is a rather startling statement. Quote, "It may be, for instance, that gross pollution of the environment can eventually replace the possibility of mass destruction by nuclear weapons as the apparent threat to the survival of the species. It constitutes a threat that could be dealt with only through social organization and political power." Now, what's important there is the fact that back in 1963, it was being talked about as using the environmental issue as an apparent threat, and hence the disguise of perhaps taking out what seems to be a good cause on the surface and perverting it for the purposes of building socialism over the entire planet and for the building of world government under the framework of the United Nations.
It's interesting that even on the purely geological or scientific level, there seems to be some fraud involved. We're told that the ozone layer is being depleted. Scientific studies in other areas say that no, it's not being depleted at all. We're told that there's a gradual warming of the Earth, that the polar ice caps are melting. Others say no, the water level, the mean water level has remained constant for hundreds of years. Dixie Lee Ray wrote one book called Trashing the Planet, in which she debunks many of these myths. Why suddenly this propaganda that you know, we're wrecking the earth and we have to do something about it?
I think there's a political agenda and a religious agenda, and they come together in this movement. The political agenda is that tyrants and would-be tyrants want to control as much of the lives of their subjects or slaves as they possibly can. The more they control, the more secure they are in power. So if you want to establish a tyranny in a country, or if you want to establish a tyranny over the whole world, you must establish control over virtually every facet of life. And this business about regulating and protecting and ensuring the continuity of species and so forth and so on, it's a sort of a front to justify the imposition of more and more regulation over every single facet of the lives of the people. You can see the absurdity of it, for example, with regard to the spotted owl business. They're willing to disrupt the lives of countless
thousands
of people and destroy their habitat for the sake of a spotted owl, which is an absurdity, an absolute absurdity. I mean, who cares whether you know, one of the 7 to 9 million species of living things on Earth goes out of existence. I mean, fine, if you can preserve it, that's great. But, I mean, really and truly, the whole thing is absurd. It is as though we were here for the planet, and the planet is not here for us. That's the first thing. Man is not for the earth. The earth is for man. Man is for God, and the earth is for man. It is not the reverse. Everything that God created on this earth, and indeed in the universe itself, is created for man. So the political agenda is control and more control. The theological or religious agenda is pantheism. That is to say, to turn the earth and physical creation into God, and to make it the object of our worship. That's the twofold aspect, or the two prongs of this movement.
What's the modus operandi, or the way that these people operate, Julius, is they have basically 3 steps. First of all is to create a crisis, or to take an existing problem and blow it beyond reasonable proportions. Then simply the masses are made aware of it through the news media, through church sermons, unfortunately in some circles, through public speeches, what have you. And the third is a pre-planned solution is already there to offer, and invariably it leads to a proposal, as a politician steps forward with a proposal that will somehow, some way increase governmental controls at the national level or international level, where they're ultimately working to create, if you will, a World Environmental Protection Agency.
There's been I would imagine that amongst the environmentalists, what you said about who cares if the spotted owl went out of existence, that would probably raise their ire to no degree.
It would be blasphemy, because the spotted owl is part of God.
Oh, sure. Well, you know,
which is the world.
What I'm going to ask is very interesting. There was one gentleman named Marlon Madu who went to describe one of the policies of the New Age environmentalists. He said, one, they believe that Christianity has caused an environmental crisis, just what you said. Because Christians believe God is above creation, not part of it, they allegedly have a low view of nature, i.e., Father Kelly says, who cares if a spotted owl goes out of existence? Right. The only way to save the earth is a revival of pantheism, which you said God is everything, and paganism. With the right religious perspective, one world government and planetary salvation will be achieved through affirming the unity with our divine mother, Gaia, the goddess who pervades us all.
He has it backwards, though. He says the only way to preserve the earth is by pantheism. The truth is the reverse. The way to make pantheism the religion of the world is to make environmentalism the major preoccupation. It's the reverse. The whole point is not the environment. They're not really, I mean, for example, on Earth Day, on May the 1st in New York, they had this big to-do, and when those people got finished there, it looked like they had about 10 or 15,000 pigs. I mean, they left the place in a shambles. It was disgusting. Tons and tons of garbage. And they had assembled there because they were concerned that the environment had to be protected from waste. It's the reverse, Julius. It's a question of making the earth God. How do you make the earth God? How do you destroy the allegiance of people to the one true God? You transfer it. You transfer it to another object which is devoid of all reality and simply has some appearance of religiosity. And that is what this is all about.
There was an assembly of 44 scientists who debunked this global warming, and they had interesting sidelight to offer. They said the following: regulations will have catastrophic effects on the world economy, jobs, standard of living, and health care, with most severe consequences falling upon the poor. Already these environmentalists, especially the more radical ones, want to change our lifestyles in such a way that it will impose great hardship on people. Hundreds and thousands of people losing their jobs because you can't dig here, you can't do this, you're sending too much of this into the air.
Because they don't care about people.
Right.
They don't care about people. They care about animals. They care about, you know, birds and fish. And they don't care about people. Man is not what he was created by God. And it's a very, very strange thing. It's a paradoxical situation. They make man the object of their worship, and yet at the same time they really destroy the dignity that God has bestowed upon man. And that dignity comes from man's relationship to God. And that's the whole point of it, that at the pinnacle of creation you have the angels and men. And then under men you have the creation that God has given to man to help man know, love, and serve God. And that includes this earth and all of creation. That's a very, very important point, a very, very central issue that people have to understand, that man is not for the earth. Man is not subordinate to the environment. Man is not here just as one of many creatures that populate this world, as one of the 7 to 9 million species of living things. Man is the ruler. Man is at the helm, and all of these things are meant to serve man, and man is meant to serve God.
At the heartbeat of this whole thing, Julius, is an organization called the Club of Rome. And it's interesting when you examine the publications of the Club of Rome, their philosophy toward population, toward human beings. One of the things, of course, they feel very strongly is that the world is very overpopulated. And the recommendation is, of course, a tremendous admiration for the United Nations policies on birth control, abortion in China, for instance, that take place.
And the truth, by the way, is that the earth is underpopulated.
That's right. As a matter of fact, putting that in perspective, you could take the entire world's population, 5.4 billion people approximately, put it in the state of Arkansas, you'd have 10 square feet per person and have the rest of the world's area for food production. But this Club of Rome, interestingly enough, putting it to the United States, in their publications, they feel that the ideal population for the United States is 75 million people. Of course, now what's interesting here is what is to be done with the other 175 million people that we have. They don't get into the details of how the population would be reduced.
It's interesting to examine some of the groups and ideologies that pervade this movement, like the one fellow from what may be called the radical green sector, his idea, let's cage ourselves and let animals run free.
Right. Talk about insanity.
Yeah.
Right?
And then the agenda, their agenda goes beyond the ecology to gay rights, abolition of nations and private property. There's another sector which is known as the deep ecology sector. They're heavily based in the New Age movement and pagan religion. They worship Gaia, the spirit of the earth. They include witches and pagans, New Age educators. Their goal is this New Age transformation of individuals. And the Green Movement in the United States simply hates private property, the idea of private property, and attempts to frustrate development. Interestingly enough, one man now who's becoming very prominent in the Green Movement is none other than Mikhail Gorbachev. What do you think of, Reverend Father Kelly, Don, about the presence of such groups and ideologies within this Mother Earth movement?
I think that for the average person looking at it from the point of view of each isolated element that is involved, there does not seem to be a unity or a coordination. But if you look at the ideology, if you look at the politics of it, if you look at the religion of it, if you look at the naturalism of it, you find out that fundamentally and essentially there is a link. And the link comes in this rejection of God, God the Creator, of man and of the universe, who created man for himself, to know him, to love him, to serve him, to be happy with him forever in heaven. You exclude the transcendent Creator from his creation. You establish a pure naturalism, that all there is what we have here on earth, and that if there is a God, this is the God. And therefore, since it is God, since creation is God, the imposition of man-made standards and man-made principles, for example, we spoke about it on previous programs, the idea of legitimate civil authority, the idea of legitimate ecclesiastical authority, telling people what to do. They look upon this as a kind of restriction of man's natural liberty. So what you have to do is you have to return man to his natural state. You have to let man do what he wants to do in a perfectly natural way. But in order to do that, you have to establish a kind of environmental dictatorship of the proletariat. You know, the communists taught, and this is a Marxist doctrine, that all civil authority is evil. But in order to purge society of civil authority, you must establish a dictatorship. You must take all of the power that is available and put it into the hands of those who represent the proletariat, and they will exercise that power to destroy all governments and all notion of authority, and then everyone will be natural again and they'll live happily ever after. So the reason they come together is because when you peel away the mask, you peel away communism's mask, you peel away the mask from Freemasonry, from socialism, from environmentalism, and what you end up with at the very base is that all there is this creation, this earth. This is heaven. If there's going to be a heaven, it's going to be on this earth, and God has to be excluded from it. So they do all come together, and they're all working for the establishment of this central power, in order to purge the earth of the effects of legitimate civil authority and legitimate ecclesiastical authority. And the idea is that then eventually this will wither away, when we know in fact and in truth what will happen is that those who have seized that power will never let go of it. They will impose a world tyranny.
You're watching with Catholic. Father Kelly, it's interesting to note, and Don, that I read recently that this environmental movement in the United States has funding which is 4 times greater than the funding of the Republican and Democrat parties combined. I'd like to turn just to a moment to the one of the key issues, which I think is one of the darker sides of this question, and namely it's the population control. The environmentalists feel that there are too many people. Many of their leading spokesmen approve of the policies in China where there is forced abortion, forced sterilization, incarceration of parents who do not comply with their population dictates, female infanticide, killing little children who happen to be girls because they wanted a boy, and so on. And this policy is actually smiled upon and tolerated, and if anything, the environmentalists say it doesn't go far enough, and they advocate putting chemical agents which will lead to sterility in the water supply. We see that even on the natural level, if a family, say, has a large family, many children, and they are seen in public, more often than not, people are not going to say, this is wonderful.
In our society.
Right.
Yeah,
they will sneer at them with contempt and say, what's wrong with these people? They're ignorant.
Well, the doctor, when the woman goes, I know someone who told me this, when the woman goes to the doctor will look on her with, you know, a certain amount of disdain. Right. Not in every case, of course, but I know of cases. Right. You know, how can you have another baby? You know, how can you do this to Mother Earth?
But I mean, in fact, this is so evil, this attitude, and it's really an attack on God Himself, who is the author of life. This great blessing, children, souls who can be united with God forever, are looked upon as something which is produced by ignorant, backwards people.
It's a perversion of truth and of values. When God gives children to families, that's a blessing. That God should cooperate with human beings in the creation of immortal souls so that they can properly educate them and lead them to eternal life. I mean, what is, you know, more sublime, what is more wondrous than a privilege like that? And it is satanic. I'm not saying that these people are consciously being satanic, but it is the spirit of Satan. That is the spirit of Satan, to reverse everything, to make good bad, to make up down, to make black white, white black, to destroy the distinctions, the real distinctions between good and evil, and to take something which is as wonderful as cooperating with God in the creation of life, and to look upon it as being something bad or something reprehensible. It's a perversion. It's an actual perversion of values.
Don.
We've been conditioned really for decades, Julius, to accept what is being brought forth now. It's not something that just sprung up in the last 5 to 10 years. For instance, in my younger days, I read science fiction novels. And one of the main themes, of course, of science fiction is the humanistic idea, the idea of kicking God out of the universe, and what then becomes the center is man and man's technology, if you will. One of the most prominent science fiction writers that I used to read, and is still all over the stands when you go to buy books, is Isaac Asimov, who happened to be a signer of the Humanist Manifesto. And one of his most popular series was a series called the Foundation Trilogy. And interestingly enough, as he developed the series, one of the most ideal situations he had was the planet Gaia, where the human beings and the planet became one organism, if you will, and the individual is willing to surrender his individuality, his decision-making, his best interests of thought and things like this to the common good of the planet Gaia. And the next logical step in his series, of course, is the development of Galaxia, the entire universe, or galaxy, if you will, being one organism where the individual has surrendered everything and there's no recognition of individuality. So we've been prepared through a multiple media sources over the decades to accept where we're being headed now toward this New Age, New World Order concept of Mother Earth, surrender everything for the good of all mankind type of concept.
That's pantheism too, by the way.
Oh, sure.
That the world is God, that the universe is God, and that God is not out there. And that is also the spirit of the reform that has taken hold in the church.
Well, you know, I can even remember a modern bishop who said in a letter that we have to remember that we share the environment with communities which are not human. So, you know, it's interesting when you consider this, that it seems that, I think we've documented it to a certain extent, even in the Sierra Club now we hear of they promote this New Age visualization rituals to contact the voice of the living earth. That's pantheism.
It's pantheism, and
It's
it also
pagan.
smacks of witchcraft. And it's amazing. I was talking to Don before. I was in a bookstore the other day. I was looking for a book, and I couldn't believe there was this huge section in the bookstore on New Age literature. And I said, who the heck is reading all this stuff? I mean, for a major bookstore chain to have a huge section on New Age literature is indicative of, I think, the impact that this is having.
You know, it's interesting, too, that we see, I think, in the roots of all this, perhaps the fruits of the great apostasy, a complete rejection of 2,000 years of Christianity, a return to paganism, to infanticide, to this magic and rituals and all kinds of things like this. And they all are turning up in this Mother Earth movement. And frankly, you know, the whole thinking, it's so earth-centered. You're just wondering, could this be a preparation, or could this movement be the concrete instrument to accept and to prepare the world for Antichrist?
I certainly think that that is so. I think that of course, we know that when the Antichrist does come, that he will outlaw all religion, and there will only be one world religion of the Antichrist, and there will also be a world government over which he will rule, and he will impose this religion by force and violence upon the earth. And I think that really tells the whole story. And it goes back to a very fundamental question in the Catechism. You know, why did God make you? God made me to know him, to love him, to serve him. God is the creator. The universe did not exist. Nothing existed except God. And then at a point in time, God created out of nothing. He brought the universe into existence. He created the earth. He created the angels. He created men. He created the rest of the universe to serve man. He created man to serve himself. That's why we're here. That's the purpose of our lives. We're not here to turn the earth into a paradise. That's an impossibility. This earth has a sentence against it already. This earth is going to be destroyed by fire. It's just a question of time. And what we have to do is we have to get out to the people and tell the people the truth about that fundamental question. Where we have come from, why we're here, where we're going, and what it is that the devil is doing to try and to destroy the chances of our salvation, because he is consumed with envy and hatred hatred for God and envy for us, because we can attain the purpose for which God made us. And he is using all of these things to substitute an earth-bound, man-centered religion for the one true religion and the one true church established by Christ.
You've been watching What Catholics